There are seasons in life when the situation looks impossible. You've prayed, you've waited, you've done everything you know to do, and still the answer hasn't come. The doctors have no more options. The relationship feels beyond repair. The bill is more than you have. The door has been closed for so long, you've started to believe it will never open. And in those moments, it's easy to feel completely alone, as if only you carry this heavy, impossible burden. It's easy to think that no one understands, that no one has ever stood where you're standing. But here's the truth that the Catholic faith offers in the middle of that darkness. You are not the first person to face an impossible cause, and you are not meant to carry it alone. The Church, in its wisdom, has recognized certain saints as patrons of impossible causes, men and women who lived through their own impossible situations, and who now intercede before God for those who still hope. When you don't know what else to do, when you've exhausted your own strength, the saints are a gift, a cloud of witnesses who pray with you and for you. Today, I want to introduce you to 5 saints, patrons of impossible causes, and how to pray with them in your hardest season. By the end of this message, you'll know who to turn to, and you'll know that your impossible situation is not beyond hope. The first saint is Saint Jude, the patron of impossible causes and desperate situations. His name is probably familiar, because for centuries, people in desperate situations have turned to him. Jude was one of the 12 apostles, and he is traditionally shown holding an image of Jesus, reminding us that his power to help comes not from himself, but from Christ. What makes Jude such a powerful intercessor is that he is the saint of last resort, the one people turn to when everything else has failed. And that is exactly why he is so loved. He does not require you to have perfect faith. He does not require you to have the right words. He meets you in the desperation itself. When you feel like you've tried everything, you can simply pray, "Saint Jude, patron of impossible causes, I am desperate. I have nowhere else to turn. Please intercede for me before the Lord. Pray with me for this situation," and then lay your impossible cause before him with confidence that he hears and carries it to Jesus. Saint Jude has seen every kind of desperate heart, and he does not turn any of them away. Your desperation is not an obstacle to his prayers. It is exactly why he is there. He is the saint of last resort, and last resort hearts are his specialty. Saint Jude is proof that no situation is beyond the reach of God, and that even in your desperation, you are not alone. The second saint is Saint Rita of Cascia, known as the Saint of the Impossible, the patroness of lost and impossible causes, of every impossible situation. Saint Rita's life was itself a long story of difficulty and suffering. She endured an unhappy marriage, she lost her husband and her sons, and she faced rejection and hardship at every turn. Yet through it all, she remained faithful. And in her later years, she entered a convent and devoted herself to prayer. After her death, countless people who turned to her in impossible situations experienced answers that could only be described as miraculous. This is why she is invoked for the most desperate circumstances. When you pray to Saint Rita, you are praying to a woman who herself carried impossible burdens and who does not abandon those who suffer. Her life testifies that faith can survive even the hardest road, and that God honors persistent prayer. In your impossible season, you can pray, Saint Rita, who trusted God through every suffering, pray for me in this impossible situation. Intercede for me, that I may trust as you trusted, and that I may receive the mercy I so desperately need. Let Saint Rita's perseverance teach you to keep praying, even when the answer is slow. The third saint is Saint Monica, the patroness of difficult situations and of those whose loved ones have wandered far from God. Saint Monica spent years, and we mean years, praying for her son Augustine, who had turned away from the faith and was living a life far from God. She did not see the answer to her prayers for a very long time. For years, it must have looked impossible, as if her tears and prayers were accomplishing nothing. But Saint Monica never gave up. She kept praying, kept loving, kept hoping, and in the end, Augustine converted, became a bishop, and was later named a doctor of the Church. He became one of the greatest saints in history, and it all began with his mother's impossible prayer that refused to stop. If you are praying for someone who seems unreachable, who has turned away, who seems lost beyond hope, Saint Monica is your companion. She understands the long, lonely wait. You can pray, Saint Monica, who prayed for years without seeing the answer. Stand with me. Pray with me for the one I love. Intercede that they may return, and that my hope may not grow weary. Saint Monica's story proves that no prayer is wasted, and that the impossible can change. And it proves something else as well, that the ones we love are never beyond the reach of God's mercy. The son she prayed for became one of the most influential voices in the history of the Church, and his conversion is celebrated as a triumph of a mother's faithful love. If you are praying for a loved one today, take heart. Your prayers are planting seeds that you may not see for years, but God is faithful to water them. Keep praying. Saint Monica is praying with you. The fourth saint is Saint Philomena, known as the Saint of the Impossible, the mighty virgin and wonder worker. Unlike the others, Saint Philomena's story was hidden for centuries. Her tomb was discovered in the early 19th century, and almost immediately, people began to experience extraordinary things when they prayed for her intercession. Healings, conversions, and answers to impossible requests followed so quickly that she became known as a wonder worker, a saint whose intercession was powerful and swift. What is striking about Saint Philomena is that she is one of the youngest and least known of the great intercessors, reminding us that God's power is not limited by our age, our fame, or our history. He can work powerfully through anyone. When you feel that your situation is too far gone, too hidden, too impossible for anyone to help, turn to Saint Philomena. Pray, Saint Philomena, mighty intercessor. You who have obtained wonders for those who trust in you, pray for me now. My situation seems impossible, but I ask you to bring it before the Lord with confidence. Help me to hope when I cannot see a way. Saint Philomena reminds you that the most hidden and hopeless cases are exactly where God's power shines. When everything feels hidden and forgotten, remember that nothing is hidden from God, and that He sees you and your impossible cause with perfect love. He needs only a heart that is willing to ask, and He honors even the smallest request made in faith. And the fifth saint is Saint Joseph, the patron of universal causes, and the one to whom we can bring every need. Saint Joseph was chosen by God to be the guardian of Jesus and the spouse of Mary. He faced impossible situations himself: the journey to Bethlehem with nowhere to stay, the flight into Egypt to escape danger, the constant care of the Holy Family. And in every one of those trials, Joseph did not rely on his own plans. He listened to God, he obeyed, and he trusted. That is why he is such a powerful intercessor. He is the saint of the worker, of the provider, of the protector, and of every ordinary person facing an extraordinary burden. When you don't know where to turn, when you feel you have exhausted your own ability to provide, protect, or fix, you can turn to Saint Joseph. Pray, Saint Joseph, who trusted God in every difficulty and was faithful in the ordinary duties of life. Pray for me. Intercede for my family, for my provision, for my protection, for this situation that seems impossible. Help me to trust as you trusted. Saint Joseph reminds you that faithfulness in what is small prepares you to trust God with what is great. Before he was entrusted with the Son of God, Joseph was a craftsman, faithful in the ordinary work of his hands. And because he was faithful in the small things, God entrusted him with the greatest thing of all. This is why he is the patron of the worker and of the ordinary life. If you feel that your life is small, that your struggle is not important enough for God to notice, remember Joseph. The guardian of the Holy Family carried his burden in silence, and so can you, with his prayers beside you. Let's bring everything together. Saint Jude is the refuge of the desperate, the saint of last resort who never abandons you. Saint Rita is the companion of those who have suffered long, whose perseverance teaches you to keep praying. Saint Monica is the mother who never stopped hoping for the one who wandered, and her faith carried him home. Saint Philomena is the wonder worker of hidden and hopeless cases, proof that God's power is not bound by what looks impossible. And Saint Joseph is the faithful guardian, the patron of every ordinary burden, who helps you trust in the midst of it all. These 5 saints were ordinary people who faced impossible situations and who now intercede before God with a love that does not stop. They are a gift to you in your hardest season. When you feel alone, they are with you, and they are praying for you even now, in this very moment. When you feel hopeless, they teach you to hope. When you don't know what to pray, they pray with you. Your impossible cause is not beyond reach. It is held by people who know how to carry it to God, and by a God who does not abandon those who turn to Him. So today, if you are facing an impossible situation, let me encourage you to choose one of these saints and pray with them this week. Bring your desperate need to Saint Jude. Trust your long-suffering to Saint Rita. Entrust your wandering loved one to Saint Monica. Offer your hidden hopeless case to Saint Philomena. And place your daily, ordinary burden in the care of Saint Joseph. You do not have to have perfect faith. You only have to reach out and ask for their prayers, and to trust that God hears. The saints do not replace Christ. They lead you to Him. They walk with you toward the one who is able to do what no one else can do. If this message encouraged you, share it with someone who is facing an impossible cause, who needs to know they are not alone. And comment below, "Pray for me, saints." Don't forget to subscribe for more messages of faith and hope, and share this with anyone who needs the saints beside them. The God who stood beside Saint Jude, Saint Rita, Saint Monica, Saint Philomena, and Saint Joseph is the same God who stands beside you. He is faithful. Trust in Him, and let the saints carry your impossible cause to Him with confidence. Your impossible situation is not the end of your